for me, it was very easy to close my ears per se and say, yeah, they will view, they will, that's, and I put a character on. Once I put my jersey of the referee, I'm not Paulo Duarte anymore. I'm the referee, Paulo Duarte. And they shout into the referee, not to the person. That's where I learned to separate the two characters, still the same, but that helped me react to that abuse. And sometimes it was very, very hard to cope during the game.
So, welcome to another episode of RugbyMed, the science of the game. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Paulo Duarte, an esteemed international rugby referee with vast experience on the global stage, including officiating at both the Tokyo 2020 and Paris 2024 Olympics. Paulo, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Carlos. It's a pleasure to come to the RugbyMed and share my experience. So thank you so much for the invitation.
Paulo, welcome. Your journey in rugby has been truly fascinating. Let's start with your beginnings. How did you first get involved in rugby, and what led you to transition from playing to refereeing?
So first met rugby in school. I had a couple of classes with one of the PE teachers in school, and I had some friends that already played rugby. Unfortunately, as a Portuguese, the expectation is to play football, but I had two left feet, so I couldn't make it. But at the time, I was around 14, 15 years old, and I wanted to try competition in some sort of sports. I was good at running, so something that I tried as well in terms of inter-schools running. But I like it to try something as a team, team sports. So I asked one of my friends if I could join the team and try rugby. I went there and I fell in love with the sport, and that's where I started my journey rugby-wise. Unfortunately, I found out soon enough that my playing career wouldn't have the success that I expected as well. But I was very clever on asking questions. So at the time, I had one of the coaching staff was a former referee, so Ferdinand Souza, one of the esteemed as well international referees for Portugal. And I think he told me the story that I asked the question, a very clever question around the laws of the game. And there was a program for youth referees, for young referees, starting in 2006-07. That was when we first went to the World Cup. And he asked me to join if I wanted to join to learn the laws, to learn to be a better player. I didn't had the idea to become a referee, so it's just to improve my knowledge of the game because it's a very complex game. And I tried it. I kept playing, and that's where I actually transitioned to the refereeing when I had some injuries. So.
Yeah, you mentioned that an injury played a role in your decision, and I've read that before also in some interviews that you have given, and that injury made you focus on refereeing. Could you share a bit more about the experience and how it shaped your path?
100%. So I think my body was not prepared to play the rugby that I wanted to play. I was a flanker, so
Yeah.
my physicality, so my head was all in, but the body didn't cope. So I had a couple of injuries in my knees. So I started with the left knee alone, catching a ball from the air. I hyperextended my knee. So I had a long recovery. Luckily, it was the end of the season, so I started to play straight on in September when the season started. And I've been playing for the last 3 years and refereeing for the last 3 years. So from 2006 to 2009, I was doing both. And then I tried to play in a better level. So I played for Belas Rugby Club. Um, And I wanted to do a little bit more. So I went to Cascais. At the time, they played in the first division, so the second division in Portugal, and try. So a couple of trainings in, big blokes, so even bigger than in Belarus or the competition that I was used to play. And I tried to put my body where I shouldn't. There was a big clean out. My feet got stuck. My knee got the other way. So luckily, it was just a ligament, internal ligament, but it was a hard recovery for me because then I started to play again, uh, supposing that I was already recovered. My first tackle did it again, so I said, no, that's probably the way
That's
to
enough.
stop. Yeah, that's enough. I had some people at the time already asking me why you don't focus on the referee. Maybe you're not going to become a huge player or a massive player, but as a referee, maybe you can achieve something special. At the time, I was like, no, I like to play. I can do both. I organize myself, but I still want to play. And with those injuries, I think it was the right decision to make at the time. New job, uh, injuries starting to show up, and maybe I stopped at the right time to at least have a different career and still be involved in the game. I think that's the most important message. I wanted to be involved in the game, not no matter what. Maybe I could be a coach, but not at the time. I didn't understand the rugby. Still
Okay.
don't. Uh,
Moving to that transition, many players struggle with the transitioning between away from playing. Was it difficult for you to step into refereeing, and what were the biggest challenge that you found in the early days?
so I think everyone wants to play, and everyone that played the game understands that how special the values are within the team. So the sacrifice, if I stand up for someone, my colleague, the fight for territory to score the tries, special moments. I think everyone, normally everyone, remembers the first try they scored. All that emotional feelings and all the camaraderie between the players. So it's after matches, the traveling together. All this is very hard to transition to when you start to referee or to have the same experience as you start to referee because you travel mostly alone. You don't have anyone in the early days to support your decisions, to support your mistakes, which that was the hardest part. I started
Yeah.
to go alone to places, and that's where I felt the need of those emotions, those feelings. I didn't score tries. I maybe award them, but that's not the same.
Yeah.
Um,
And at what point did you realize that you wanted to become a professional referee? I mean, was that something that you realized soon or later in this path?
I think because I had this transition from playing and refereeing and then to fully referee, at that time I didn't realize I didn't want to
Yeah.
become the best referee ever or the best referee in Portugal, want to be in the Olympics. But when I stopped playing in 2010, and the first 2 years was decisive. So I worked hard to be at my best as a referee as well. So training, studying, seeing videos, watching matches from my colleagues, always available to do either exchanges, go to the national team camps, go to clubs training. So I made myself available to suck all the information and all I could get in terms of knowledge. And I think in 2012, when I got my first appointment for sevens in Poland, was a terrible experience, by the way. I was too nervous. I was brain melting with the pressure. Um, and I had this funny experience as well. So the referee manager at the time, I never met him before. I arrived on the Friday. I didn't see him that day, so only saw him on the bus. And he looked at me and say, "I don't know you, never saw you refereeing, but I was told that you are very good. So let's see." And then all the pressure came in. Uh, Luckily, that tournament went well. I managed to referee the final and got invited to the GPS for the main
Mhm.
division. That's where I started to dream. Maybe I'm good at it, but I need to focus. I need to put my feet on the ground to make sure that I don't overstep myself.
Yeah.
That's
And you
where, yeah, yeah.
and you have refereed in some of the biggest rugby competitions, including Olympics and in both Tokyo and Paris. Can you tell us about the experience of officiating one of these prestigious events?
100%. I will tell you that both experiences, because they were so opposite to one in each other. But answering Antonio, I think when the Olympics became or the sevens became Olympic, I pursued that dream. I went to Twickenham in 2013, 14 to watch the sevens, my first sevens, and I said one day I'll be there. And I kept dreaming about that dream. So here I am. I've accomplished. And the experience of the Olympics, I think, unfortunately, we had this Olympics with the pandemic, with the COVID, which for every person, either player, coach, or either referee, it's the pinnacle of a career, the biggest sports event, and the dream just became small, like a nightmare, because all the pressure around COVID, the vaccination process. I had an injury coming to the Olympics before when I was refereeing a game. I got knocked out in the leg, so I had that recovery process as well. Messed up with my mind, mental health. We'll speak about later. But then I was not worried about the injuries or the performance. We were focused around no public. We got into Japan. We went straight to the hotel. We never left the hotel. We always eat in our own rooms without sharing or mingling with the colleagues. We went to the stadium, stayed the whole day there, empty, fully empty stadium,
Yeah.
refereed again with all the pressure about the results, because at the end of the day, we will pick the Olympic medalist. We will have to have that Olympic medalist. So, and there was no escape room,
Yeah.
nothing, because usually the crowd goes and you suck it, but you exert all the emotions as well. There was just the game and us.
Paris
Um,
was different, right?
Paris was much different, much different. So the preparation was completely different. So we had tough tournaments. The format changed in between. We had a good preparation in Portugal, home base. So I helped prepare the training camp in Algarve, which made the experience more special even. And arriving in Paris was amazing. So even with the chaos, with the big city,
Yeah.
the Olympics in a big city, so you didn't go further out. But we stayed near the stadium, and we had 80,000 people, 70,000 people every day coming to the sevens.
Yeah.
When France played, it was scary, all the noise, but it was very positive, but it was very cheerful. It's not uh, Tokyo
It
was a
worked.
lot,
Yeah, it worked out well for them, right?
100%. 100%.
Oh, that
Maybe
night.
because of one player, maybe because of one player.
Yeah, I don't
Uh,
know. I don't know. Who knows, right? History will tell one day the impact of that player in the game. But you have mentioned that we all know that you have been in the European circuit, then in the international circuit in HSBC sevens and now the sevens. You have been into Olympic Games, but how does that compare to officiating at national level?
it's different. It's different. And there was times that was challenging coming from the World Series for 2 weeks, the highest rugby sevens that we have in the world, and coming to back home and referee. the reality, the reality that we live in, with the culture that we have, the level of rugby that we have, the lack of infrastructure. We don't have big stadiums. There is not a lot of technology, so we need to rely on ourselves to either referee or to play. And sometimes we don't have ball carriers to speed it up the game. So we have this management that needs to be different. I felt on a personal note, it's like coming to a depression, not because it's a bad thing. It's just normal. All the adrenaline that you leave, all the energy that you spend in tournaments, and then you come here, and there is none. There is not a lot. So you might get nervous to prepare a game in the national division, but it's not the same. But we have to live with it. We have to embrace and keep reminding us why we do it, why is it good to referee or to be involved in the game, no matter what game we get. And
And
sometimes terrible
even
games.
the middle part that you were talking about, when you step on the field and in front of the global audience, like you said before, how do you prepare yourself mentally and physically for such high stakes matches?
It's hard because usually it's the work it's being done by yourself. It's mainly the work it's focused on you trying to see what the team's trying to achieve, what you want from the game, how I'm going to cope with the external pressure, the crowds, the players, how you manage the leadership within the game. But with the time and experience, you learn some triggers to get it in the right moment. When I say the sweet spot, we need to be in the sweet spot to make the accurate decision for the right context of the game. But there was a moment in the career that I needed extra help. So I had the possibility to have a sports psychologist to work with me towards Tokyo. And that helped me a lot, especially with the COVID situation. There was external pressure extra there. And that's where I learned to rationalize my emotions, to put it in the paper, what I'm feeling and what's the reason. Can I control it? Can I not? And that's where I always try to keep it as simple as possible. Because if something happens, I have maneuver the ability to change and to adapt. If it's too complex and something happens, it's much difficult. But there was moments that we were in the dark, in the ground, trying to get up and see some air. And it was very hard because at the end of the day, the referee has to make decisions, and sometimes it's hard decisions. And sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. And when we get it wrong, that's where as a human, we live that emotion. We have an emotional attachment to that decision that makes you not sleep, cry sometimes, have to speak to someone else, colleague, support that we have. Luckily, I have a good network of friends and colleagues that I can rely on. Antonio is probably one of the person that I speak as well sometimes. Carlos, not yet, not yet.
With great pleasure. With great pleasure, we are here to support you because your pathway has been unbelievable. And I'm just looking back into last week's episode and think about what MLR, a league where you have been a very relevant figure because you have refereed at that competition. What they are doing also in terms of providing tools for referees and all other agents in terms of mental health support is outstanding, and it shows the relevance of these subjects, of these matters in the sporting reality. But one of the major issues that we all are now faced with is the need to raise player welfare and safety in our game. It has become a major focus, and with these new rules that are aimed to improve safety, this has become very clear. As a referee, Paulo, what are the key things that you try to ensure during a match in terms of player safety? What do you look for, and what do you try to make sure that is in place to keep to keep the players and the game safe?
Yeah. So the laws that changing to increase the player safety should be very welcomed by everyone, and everyone needs to buy in to make sure that we keep the game safe. Referee wise, there are usually we say that in terms of infringements we have the negotiables, and then that can depend on what is the material effect on the game, but towards safety there is non-negotiable. So that's where the tackle height law, no matter if it's the line of the shoulder, the sternum, or the waist, we need to respect that and to make sure that we have a strong and clear process for everything. So when the head contact process came in to help referees and everyone understand that situations when there is contact with the head, we need to respect that. We cannot go and be empathic with the game, empathic with the player that surely didn't want to do that, but we need to maybe be black and white to make sure that not now, but in 10 years' time, he still remembers his name.
Yeah.
And that's referee responsibility as well as the medics, as well as the coaches and the players, that we need to make sure that the game stays safe. All the way, it's 15 against 15, can be a fight and becomes a fight if you don't do that. So in terms of dangerous play in the game, we need to have and stick to the law more than interpretation. Obviously, with the dynamics of the game, we need to interpret in ways what sometimes is not clear and obvious. Then we can have some empathic and understand that he couldn't avoid the contact. It's impossible, physically impossible to, when you suddenly adjust the direction and you come towards me, I couldn't do anything else. So that works in terms of reducing the sanction, and maybe from a red card to a yellow card, or from a yellow to a penalty, or even when there is contact with the head, but there is no way it could be foul play because the players were so low. He was bent to the hips. He was generally attempting to tackle. That it's just a rugby collision, and it happens, and we have to live with that. But it's hard to referee. It's a split of a second. We don't have technology most of the times.
Yeah.
Sometimes cannot give us the evidence that we want to see. That makes it harder to referee, and more laws or more guidelines or more layers to decision making. It's making referees more. It's making refereeing more complex, more difficult to referee on the field. It's easy when we are in the bench or sitting at home and watching on the television. Everyone creates an opinion, even the referee.
Yeah,
As you made
very easy,
complex
very easy.
decisions, have you ever made a tough call regarding a player's safety, for example, such as stopping a match or removing a player despite protests? Because sometimes, not just the audience, but sometimes the benches also, and all the guys are watching the game, interfere some way in the way you could decide, and it's.
Unfortunately, I had to step in a couple of times and be strong on my decision, on what I've seen, I could identify from signals that the player showed. But it has to have you have to have a big courage to do that, and to be sure that the responsibility of keeping the game safe at the end of the day is still the referee, because the referee is sole judge of everything. He can stop the game whenever he wants. Obviously, he has to justify that. But I had this situation around a clear knock on the head. The player collapsed. He put the arm up like he was having a seizure or something.
Tonic posture. Yeah.
Yes. And we immediately stopped the game. But when we approached the player, he was already wide open, eyes. He was at least conscious. I call it as an automatic pilot. he can answer everything you say, and he says that he's completely well to play and ready to play, but it's just the brain acting as a autopilot. He doesn't realize what he's saying. And the medical team came in and did the analysis. Obviously, it was a tough game, close score. The coaches started to put pressures in the medical teams as well. And at that moment, I realized there was a critical incident on that, because what happened was, if the player goes out, and it was a relatively important player for that team, might the outcome of the game change. And the player was similarly to good to play, and I had to make a decision. So look, I'll have the final word here. We can complain whatever you want after the match, but the player needs to leave the field.
Yeah, but Paul, this responsibility also comes with a lot of scrutiny, right? Sometimes even we can consider that sometimes we can be even on the threshold of abuse from players, from coaches, and especially from fans. How do you handle the criticism and you maintain a focus during a match, for example, in situations like this one?
So I think, as I said before, there is an emotional attachment to every decision that we make. If that emotion is very close to what I understand is, I know the people that are calling me names, it gets more emotional as well, because the expectation is my friends are calling me names because I made this decision. In Portugal, I feel this. We are a small community, and more that people shout and scream and insult, verbal abuse, it's very personal, because they know you get to know everyone, and the corridors, the bars that we go to places that we go, we know all the people. In the international stadium or in the stage, it's so big, you don't know anyone. So for me, it was very easy to close my ears per se and say, yeah, they will view, they will, that's, and I put a character on. Once I put my jersey of the referee, I'm not Paulo Duarte anymore. I'm the referee, Paulo Duarte. And they shouting to the referee, not to the person. That's where I learned to separate the two characters, still the same, but that helped me react to that abuse. And sometimes it was very, very hard to cope during the game. After the game, I stay away from social media. I don't go look for pictures of myself, and sometimes I want to see a picture of myself. I don't go look for comments around the match result, because fans will be emotional as well. Sometimes towards us. Sometimes there is a tag with my name on it. I immediately delete, because I know it's something that is not good.
You are
And
not you are not going to do that with our podcast, right? When we tag you, thank you for
no,
that.
because I know the source. I know the source.
Okay.
But
So the,
there's times that it's hard to cope with it, but we need to learn ways to as well to separate ourselves from our individual personality and character,
And be
and
resilient, right? Be resilient.
100%,
yeah,
100%.
and mental resilience is a crucial skill in refereeing, right? How do you stay composed under pressure, especially in a high profile game, of course?
Sometimes you don't. You just seem to be. There was a referee that she had autism, Amy Barrett from South Africa. She has a spectrum of autism, and I think that all referees should be autists. In a way, not not undermining obviously the clinical situation, but we need to be in our bubble.
Yeah.
If you are not on your bubble, and people go not with a needle and pinch your bubble, and they are able to break it, you're not going to last in the high performance. Even if it's a very educated game, the pressure is always there. When the games become tough and the players start to not, they don't want to play anymore, and we need to start to solve problems, we still need to be very calm, composed, because if we are showing angry, frustration, fear, nervousness, that shows to the players as well.
Yeah,
So they
for
can
sure.
use
Sure.
it as well.
But despite that, sorry, Paul, sorry.
Yeah.
So, but despite that, all of us in our careers, doesn't matter if it is as a player or as a doctor, or I can imagine as a referee, there are moments in life that we doubt ourselves. Are we doing the right thing? Especially when in a position where you are always under the spotlight, you are always there under the spotlight. There must have been one or two moments where you doubt yourself, and you have already explained to us that in some moments of your career, you needed support, and very well you did so. So how do you overcome these recurrent thoughts that one might have?
One of the questions that I always ask myself, and I ask the question for other referees as well, when you still know the answer for why am I refereeing, why you are a referee, why you still involved in the game as a referee. If you know that answer, that will help you out to continue. And I know why I'm a referee. It's not because I want to be the most famous referee in the world, because I love the game. I learned to love it as a core of my life. The values that we try to keep it alive are the values that I already had in my life. So it was very easy to mix and to make the ideal relationship between my life and the rugby. So being said that, I don't want to be away from the rugby. I can be the water carriers for the second team or the 15th team of my club. I don't mind. As a referee, that's the question that I make. And if I'm still um, positive for the game, if my mindset is still towards to improve the game, to facilitate the game, it's not about myself. It's about the players. It's about the game. We need to respect the game, everyone. And if I know that answer, I will keep going, because we will have those moments where in that dark tunnel, try to get out and asking those questions, because there is terrible moments while as a referee, but then the network that you create as a rugby agent, my friends, I always go to colleagues, peers. I created, uh, I have this support network that I can, if I feel bad, I'll go speak. I learned very early in the days that don't don't leave it here, speak. And once you speak, it's easier to overcome things. And one of the things that as well that usually as a referee usually do is you had a terrible game. You know that you had a terrible game. What we try to do is we go review that game. No, park it and go move away.
Yeah.
It only gets worse if you revive and keep reviving that situation. And it's just better. I don't want to see it. It's done. I realize it was terrible, but I move on and I make sure that it doesn't happen again. And in my career, that's what I did. I learned that I knew that I'm going to do mistakes, but my objective was I'm not going to do that mistake again.
Paulo,
And that helped. But
as a technical director of refereeing in Portugal,
yeah.
what are the steps that are being taken to develop and support young referees nowadays?
So we separated in three phases. I came to the job 2 years ago, and the most important was what we do with the panel that we have. We need to capacitate as much as possible with the limitations that we have, that group. In the meanwhile, to start to recruit. So we started to do a lot of referee courses, try to engage with the clubs more. So if they wanted a law explanation session, a referee for the training, so we asked the clubs to be involved on that and invited them to ask for that referee. And then the other one was creating a support structure to make sure when we try to get new referees, we have people to coach, to observe, to support. because, as I said, it's a very lonely career. No one wants to be alone in the pitch. So we managed to do that in the last 2 years. So we created a support structure. So we have like between 14 and 16 people that constantly are working with young referees and the panel that we have. We did a lot of workshops online, which is the easiest way to do it, to put more people in the same place to hear the same message. We started with physical tests and training sessions regularly. We wanted to, unfortunately, it's mainly in Lisbon because it's 80% of our rugby, but we want to put it more in the center, in the south, and in the north of the country. And now with the young referees, what we're trying to do, support them. So we assign the coach. They will have that person. They might not see the game, they might not see the video, but it's a person that you can speak of everything, the rugby, the personal life, the professional life. So when you have a doubt, it's not just me that is available to ask questions and to answer the questions. You have this grid that they can help. It's more close. That's what we find now, that with the new generation, they just want to belong to someone or to somewhere else. It's somewhere in a community. That's what we wanted to build. What we're trying now to do is ask the clubs. We need more. We need to do more because referees don't show up from the trees. You don't get in from the schools because they don't play football in the rugby in the schools. So they have to come from the club. And if we together create that ability to give credibility to the referee, the character to the personal, we try to reduce and to get a sense of responsibility to the clubs. They cannot verbal abuse referees anymore. It's not acceptable.
Yeah.
And we're starting to be stronger on that. So referees are reporting those cases to make sure that it's stopped. But at the same time, we need to do it on the backstage. Say it's not acceptable. Either
Yeah.
a player or a coach or a president doing that, especially for the young referees, we are going to lose them, and the game will lose with that as well. So that's the challenge, and we grew. So from last year, 2022-23 season, we finished the season with 40 referees. We started 23-24 with those 40, and we finished the season with 58.
That's
And now we are probably the records that I have in terms of refereeing for the last 15 years. We never had 60 active referees. We have now 62.
That's fantastic, and
Amazing.
that shows the work that you have done, right? That's amazing.
It's a complex situation. It's not just me, but it's everyone's
sure.
working for that. And maybe the social media is helping as well. So people are actually seeing what we are doing, more connectivity. Oh, there is this, there is that. I want to join. Maybe the Olympic Games helped. Maybe
sure.
the World Cup in 2023 helped as well to grow that need.
Yeah.
But we still have a lot of work to do
Yeah,
because
for sure.
I want to get to 100 referees.
That's that's a huge goal, and for sure that most of these young referees will come from looking at you and see you as a role model. So if you can just give them one advice for those who are trying to reach the international stage, what would be just one advice? Choose wisely.
Work hard. The opportunities are there. So if you work hard, it will happen.
It
Dream
has
big.
been, yeah.
Big.
I can completely understand, and looking at you, I completely understand why you say that because as I know you so well, work hard is for sure what you do all the time. From all these years that I've met you, you have not been given anything that you don't deserve. So congratulations on your continuing career, and I'm looking forward to see you a lot more in the rugby fields. and if not on the rugby field, working on the backstage as you do so well. Paulo, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and your insights with us.
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you, Carlos, for the invitation. I'm listening closely to the podcast, so I'm expecting for the next one, obviously. But thank you for the invitation. It was a pleasure, and we need to grow the game. And this is a part of one of the ways to grow awareness for the game and growth. So thank you for doing that as well.
Thank you so much. It was great to having you here. We look forward to seeing continue to make a huge impact on the game. Thank you, Paulo. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
And again, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Carlos. And that's a wrap up for this episode of RugbyMed, the science of the game. Stay tuned for more discussions on rugby health, safety, and innovation. Until next time, please don't forget to subscribe us and keep tuned. Bye-bye.